censored by Twitter, shadow banned on Facebook, and hated by fake news media. The Patriotically Correct Radio Show with Stu and Rich, Mojo 50 Radio.
Everything that I say on this show is always going to be 100% authentic. Everything that I say here is going to be the truth to the best of my knowledge. There's nothing that I will ever say that's going to be strictly for shock value where I don't have some sort of evidentiary material to back up my claims. There's never going to be something that I just say for just pure shock, okay? And everything that we publish is true. There's nothing here that's sensationalized. There's nothing that we talk about that is not a key issue of something that's actually going on in the United States of America right now, the country that I so love very much. And there's no doubt that the man over here, Richard Leonard, loves as well, who was willing to give the ultimate sacrifice and die in some hellhole country that he's never even been to before to get blown up by opposition, people that hate America. And I'm very offended, if that's even possible. I'm not easily offended, but I'm really upset about the censorship that's taking place. And I was talking to the CEO of OpsLens, and we were talking about alternative media sources, and we were talking about how they're censoring the president on Twitter, and that YouTube is shutting things down, and that Google results are swayed and skewed towards liberal politicians and towards the progressive narrative that's taking place in our country. This is evident by me being banned, by this radio show being banned on YouTube. We had an episode where we were talking just yesterday, and then another episode where we were talking just a couple of days. Episode 9 has been completely removed from YouTube. They cite this insensitivity. Well, I'm sorry, but people don't have the right to not be offended. You don't have the right to not get your feelings hurt. So since when is YouTube going to go through my material, our material, and say that they're going to speculate that this is insensitive and that somehow it might hurt somebody's feelings? And so as a result of that, they've removed the video completely. Now, yesterday's show has been restricted, Richard. We talked about...
I saw that.
The theory of white privilege being non-existent, and we were debunking that theory of white privilege, and they're restricting this material, saying that it's not age appropriate. Well, why is that? You don't want your kids knowing that they have a fair shake? You don't want your black kids knowing that they have just as much opportunity in life as somebody who's white does? You don't want black kids knowing that just because they're black, they don't have to vote Democrat just because the racist Joe Biden says that if you don't vote for him, you ain't black? Come on, man.
I'm really taken back by all. It seems like I don't even have words to express my frustration. I think that white privilege must just be that sensitive of a topic. And
so is today going to be banned?
Country?
Because we're talking about it. We brought up white privilege again. Here it is. Here's my racist rhetoric right here. Right? If any of you out there are black and you're trying to do something, don't let these politicians tell you that because you're black you can't do anything and that everybody else in this country is racist. Okay? And that you'll never have a fair shake because you have a felony conviction, or that you'll never have a fair shake because of the color of your skin, and that you must vote Democrat. Just know that all of that is a lie. Just know that all of that is untrue. And just know that just yesterday, Richard talked about a black guy that he knows, and that's just one. That's just one. Okay, but there's other ones, and yesterday I was talking about the RNC was getting, was kind of boring, but we're going to get to Tim Scott. We're going to get to Vernon Jones. We're going to see these guys who will also tell you, don't let me tell you, I'm a white guy, which, by the way, I will never apologize for. All right? And I'm not going to apologize for anything that happened to somebody 450 years ago, that by somebody who may or may not have been my ancestors. I will denounce slavery proudly. It is not a part of American history that I'm proud of because I'm a sensible person, okay, with an IQ over 4. And, it's not hard to take a look at the media and see how completely biased it is, which brings me back to the point that I was talking to Ron over at OpsLens. This truly is an alternative media outlet for you. because we know that you see the truth out there, and we know that it's not getting reported in the media. You now have the opportunity to be the journalist yourself. Be an independent citizen journalist. Download the OpsLens app. Record these things as you see them. You have the option to choose whether you want a 15-minute gate or a 15-second gate for your video, 30-second, or I think all the way up to 120 seconds, maybe 2 minutes, I think. Yep. And you can record these things and you can upload them through the OpsLens app right to our story. Our independent icon is there for the PC radio show. And we will show your clips on here, which, by the way, we broadcast on so many different platforms. So screw YouTube. If you think that you want to censor and block me, and you think that that means that my truth won't make it out there, same thing with Facebook. Same thing with Twitter. There are a lot of other platforms out here, and these platforms are going to continue to grow in popularity and in the size of the audience because of the fact that they're fed up. They're tired of it. They know it. They see how fake and phony it is. They see how the media is completely in the tank for these liberal, extremist, radical progressives like Joe Biden, who's been in office for 47 years, nearly a half a century. Ask him what he's actually accomplished.
Yeah, I think that we have something. We're sitting on a pot of gold here with this alternative media source. It seems like every time some shithead on the street or somewhere else films something that might be controversial, boy, YouTube doesn't censor that. It makes it to every media news outlet. But the second we start talking some truth that might hurt somebody's feelings, well, guess what, folks? The truth hurts. So, yeah, let's use the OpLens app. Let's do all those things and show YouTube they're not the only show in town.
Get on over there, download the OpsLens app right now, be a part of what we have going on here. Another way for you to be a part of the Patriotically Correct Radio Show is that we are on Twitter at Correct Radio. Use the hashtag Daily Dilemma. You can talk about anything that you want to, any dilemma that you might be going through, anything that you might see that's going on in the news that's not being reported. You can also report to us on Twitter. Maybe you have a question. We had a good one yesterday. We answered that. Don't have time for a daily dilemma today. It's a packed show. In the second segment of the show today, Joe the Cop will be on. He's going to be talking about what happened in Kenosha. And now, after the politicians like the governor over there, who's a complete a-hole and jerk and a complete communist, irresponsibly inciting riots. What's with these governors and mayors, Rich?
Why do they? I can't believe that these people don't have a problem with their own states and cities being burned to the ground. You're the elected official that's supposed to protect all these things, and what happened to due process and all this other crap.
Yeah.
But yet you get on social media, and I agree with you, Stu. I think that his words absolutely fan the flames, and that's why car dealerships and businesses and all this stuff is burning.
Right. Totally tragic. And it happened in Minneapolis. It happened in Portland. It happened in Seattle. It's too late for cops now because of elected officials and weak chiefs throughout the country who have allowed this to take place and allowed this to happen. You have now set a precedent, so it's too late for cops. And any blood that is spilled from a law enforcement officer, like the one that got bricked, we're not going to show that on our program. It pisses me off too much to take a look at it. But if you go out there and Google it, take a look. I bet YouTube didn't censor that as being insensitive or shocking. I bet that's all over there because people were cheering, F the police, he just got bricked, after a huge brick was thrown at the head of a police officer. The blood of that officer and the blood of every other officer on the streets of America right now is on the hands of mayors and leadership and weak chiefs like Jeffrey Fry in Minneapolis, Governor Tim Walz in Minnesota, this jerk over here in Wisconsin, Evers, the politicians in Chicago, the Lori Lightfoots of the world. The blood of these cops is on your hands. And the hypocrisy is not silent either. You notice the protests that were outside of Lori Lightfoot's house by black people who have been left behind by her progressive policies where she picks and chooses where the police can be used. Yep, the police are terrible, and we wanted to fund them, and they're the problem, but yet I'm going to surround my entire house with them so that I can be afforded the blanket of protection that the police were designed to provide. So banned from YouTube. Go ahead. What did you say, Rich? I'm sorry.
Not just her entire house or her entire block.
Yeah, her entire block.
The whole block was surrounded by police.
So we're going to talk to Joe the cop about new things that have come to light about what actually happened in Kenosha and why Blake was shot. We can speculate that a few things here. It's going to be no shock to you that the media has taken a different narrative on this. I know that that's really shocking to you. I know that you probably just don't believe that these journalists aren't telling you the truth and just reading you the news and bringing you the news and allowing you to decide for yourself what's actually, accurate and how to explain this to your kids and how to opine on this around your dinner table. You would be shocked to know that there's things going on here that are not being reported from Kenosha. And we're going to get into that in the second half with Joe the cop, who, by the way, is a tremendous articulator of everything use of force and everything police related. He is a 23-year veteran police officer who still works on the streets of the United States. We're not going to say where, because, as you know, working cops don't have a First Amendment right by policies that they sign when they take their jobs. They're not allowed to talk to the media. We are the media, and we bring the truth, so people are scared of us. We want to go to the RNC from last night. Now, I don't know if you remember this or not, but there was a white guy on a radio show, I believe on this channel that you're listening to, during this time slot. I think he goes by Stu.
That guy?
There was a white guy on the radio who said black people have really not escaped the bonds of slavery yet today and are still held slaves by the Democrat Party. And boy, was that controversial. And boy, did I get censored and banned on YouTube, and I was checked on Twitter, and I was called a heathen and a racist on Facebook. And don't just believe me at the RNC, which has become less boring now. This is Vernon Jones talking. Let's see if I can get this to play here.
Hello, America. My name is Vernon Jones, and I'm a state representative from the great state of Georgia. As you can see, I'm a man of color. And I'm a lifelong Democrat, too.
That's racist.
You may be wondering, why is a lifelong Democrat speaking at the Republican National Convention? And that's a fair question. And here's your answer. The Democratic Party does not want black people to leave their mental plantation. We've been forced to be there for decades and generations. But I have news for Joe Biden. We are free. We are free people with free minds. And I'm part of a large and growing segment of the black community who are independent thinkers, and we believe that Donald Trump is the president that America needs to lead us forward. This is no time for sleeping in the basement. Joe Biden has had 47 years to produce results.
Yep.
But he's been all talk and no action.
That's right.
Just like so many of the Democrats who've been making promises to the black voters for decades. We've been their captive audience. When President Trump sought to earn the black vote, the Democratic Party leaders went crazy. Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer literally started wearing kente cloths around the U.S. Capitol.
They did.
As if pandering were enough to keep us satisfied.
All right. So, and he goes on to talk more about the hypocrisy of the left and people like Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer taking a knee there and wearing the kente cloths and just really, really embracing the black culture. And what this is it's such a phony display of desperation. And they're desperate to keep black people enslaved to this falsehood and this rhetoric of systemic racism, and how somehow you must be too stupid to actually think for yourself and on your own. And people like State Representative Vernon Jones from Georgia are going to be out here debunking this. Is anybody going to listen?
Well, people are falling for this crap. They put on those kente cloths and they kneeled. And I think I read somewhere that those cloths represent one single very small tribe in Africa. And those folks were outraged that they used their cloth, their identity as their own little small group or a small culture within a big culture to try to pull this crap on people.
I don't get it. I mean, I don't know anything about that. So if you know that to be true, then, I guess I would be upset. If Nancy Pelosi were trying to represent me or speak for me in any way, I would say that I would call BS on that. And I would raise a big flag and say, hey, no. She doesn't speak for me. And that's the whole point that I'm trying to make here, is that Joe Biden does not speak for black people. Richard, you're black. Does Joe Biden speak for you?
Absolutely not. No way.
I know a lot of black people who are really pissed off in the recent riots that took place in Minneapolis that I've specifically talked to personally on the street, who say, who are these white girls in their 20s that are out here starting fires and burning things down with their fist in the air, graffitiing everything and smashing squad cars in the name of black people? And what makes these little bitches think that they speak for me? Because they don't. And if anything is racist, I mean, like, go back to Edina, go back to the Hamptons, go back to Mar-a-Lago, go back to your golf resort gated community and get the hell out of here. You don't know anything about the pain and the suffering that goes on in the hood. And if you take a look at what happens in the hood or any large city in America that's burning and on fire where people are suffering economically, you know what the one consistency is? They're all run by Democrats. And Senator Tim Scott from South Carolina talked a little bit about that last night here at the convention.
We actually saw revenues to the Treasury increase after we lowered taxes.
Okay, so I just want to preface this by what he was talking about before that is that he and Donald Trump put $75 billion back into the economy in pain-stricken inner cities that directly impacted and benefited people of color. That's what he's talking about here. That's what the racist president did.
We actually saw revenues to the Treasury increase after we lowered taxes in 2017. Rest assured, the Democrats do not want you to know that.
That's right.
After starting my small business and spending some time in local government, I decided to run for Congress in 2010. The district is based in Charleston, South Carolina, where the Civil War started, against a son of our legendary Senator, Strom Thurmond. You may be asking yourself, how does a poor black kid from a single-parent household run and win in a race crowded with Republicans against a Thurmond? Because of the evolution of the Southern heart. In an overwhelmingly white district, the voters judged me not on the color of my skin, but on the content of my character.
And he continues to go on talking about how his parents were divorced when he was very young. I believe he was 7 years old. He grew up with mom, and mom was very, she always believed in him. She always told him, aim for the moon, because even if you miss, you'll still be among the stars. He thought that his whole life had to revolve around football. He failed out of his freshman class. He actually failed 4 classes. I remember one of them was Spanish, the other one was civics. Well, I bet there's a common denominator in Washington among senators and congressmen who probably failed civics, especially on the what side of the aisle. But this guy is so Vernon Jones and Tim Scott they're black men. I mean, I'm not lying here. This is 100% authentic. I didn't make this up. They're not wearing blackface. These are legitimate, authentic, real black people. I mean, they're not even cartoons. They're real. They're real black people, Richard. I mean, and they're saying these things that are true. And because they're saying those things, they will be labeled Uncle Tom, which, by the way, is one of the most. We might as well just drop the N-bomb. Yep. They'll be called Uncle Tom. They'll be all kinds of different. The media will attack these two, just like they've attacked every other black man or woman that has stood up for something. You know a couple.
Maybe that's part of the strategy. Maybe they're banking on the fact that the media is going to attack them for the words that they speak to further wake up the black community. I don't know. If you ask me, it's all kind of a strategy to make the people who are falling for this shit wake up.
Watch your mouth.
And see the truth. Sorry.
It is a strategy. It's 100% strategy, and it's the only strategy that the Democrats have left. And if I were a Democrat, I'd be really pissed off right now, because there's going to become a day of awakening when black people do realize this is BS, and that they've been held slaves by this party for so long. And at that time, I don't think when that awakening happens, when people are really woke, I don't think you're going to want to be a person who identifies as a Democrat, because those people are going to be really pissed off, and rightfully so. I mean, imagine when the Emancipation Proclamation was signed, and when the Republican president freed black slaves that, by the way, were imprisoned because of Democrats, who are now pissed about their own history, which is why they're calling for the tearing down of statues that were erected by them, but they hate their own history, and so now they're canceling it and then blaming it all on Donald Trump. But those people, imagine the feeling of freedom that they had when they finally were released from those binding shackles, right? It had the generations of their ancestors and their mother and their grandmother and their sisters and their brothers and their children were born into this slavery. They knew that this wasn't right. Of course they knew that. But it took the balls of somebody brave and honorable, somebody radical, to do that. In AOC's, the way AOC refers to it is Lincoln was a radical because he did radical things. So she said, sure, call me a radical, which is when I articulated that what's really radical, in her sense of the word, is to put on a flag and some camouflage and go over to a desert and hunt down terrorists like Osama bin Laden, okay? That's radical. Radical is putting on a gun and a badge and running directly towards gunfire to assist somebody no matter what the color of their skin or political ideology, and to protect them even though they hate you, spit on you, curse you. That's radical. But the amazing feeling of freedom that these people must have felt when those shackles were finally released had to be second to none.
I agree.
And then probably came the anger, okay? And then it was, can you believe that this happened to us for that long? And then started remember then, from 1860 to 1960 was pretty volatile, according to the history books that I read, which, by the way, they still had those when I went through high school and when I began my college career. We were still objectively taught the past events of our country that formed us as a people and who we are, and who we were on September 12th when those towers came down, and it didn't matter that you were black, and it didn't matter that I was white, and it didn't matter that you were a Jew, Richard, or that I was a Christian. None of that mattered. What mattered is that we were Americans, and we were pissed that somebody would dare try to bring us and our system of equality to its knees, because we have come too far as Americans and as a country that is undisputedly the greatest country, the greatest nation on the face of the planet, and that cannot be disputed. That is authentic, and that is a fact. That's why millions of people come here every single year. About 1 million documented, and we don't know how many illegally. But those people were pissed. And so if I were a Democrat right now, I would be pissed off too. I'd be pissed off that this party has been hijacked. I'd be pissed off that people are walking away, not only walking away, but running away, like Brett Kokonatis, who we talked to here, who was a dyed-in-the-wool liberal Democrat who was raised that way for his whole life, grew up, came out of the closet as a gay man, fit into the Democrat ideology, because, of course, it's trendy if you're a Democrat to be gay, which is fine. I understand that. I don't have any problems with gay people. Right. Is that even news anymore? And so then he ran as on the GOP ticket for the I think first congressional district or third. I forget what it is. We'll talk to Kokonatis again coming up on the show, I think tomorrow. But ran as a GOP as a Republican because these people are walking away. They're running away. Politicians are, unions are, the farmers are, and now black people are. And these people are becoming increasingly desperate. I took up a lot of the time. We have a busy show today. We're coming back in the second half with our friend Joe the Cop, who is just a tremendous articulator on everything law enforcement related, whether it's use of force. We're going to talk about the media coverage that was taking place in Kenosha. We're going to talk about the riots that are happening down there. Things are burning. We're going to talk about the headlines, and we're going to talk about what really happened. We think with Mr. Blake, there's now evidence that suggests the media is lying to you once again. More Patriotically Correct Radio right here in just a couple. Stick with us. We'll be right back. More PC Radio right after this.
We will force votes. We will not stop. Any Republican senator is part of the cover-up.
What the f***?
Impeachment.
This is madness!
The PC Radio Show with Stu and Rich. Back in a minute. Broadcasting live from the highest cloud of privileged patriotism. The PC Radio Show is on Mojo 50 Radio.
And welcome back to PC Radio. My name is Stu Peters. That guy over there, that ruggedly good-looking man, that is Richard Leonard. The first segment, I have to apologize, Richard. I kind of filibustered there, and I can filibuster with the best of them.
That's all right, man. Hey, when you're passionate about something, and it makes sense, weird that happens.
Yeah.
Anywhere, but it's good, man. People love it. I love it.
Well, it's just,
No problem.
like I said, I'm never going to say anything on here just because I want ratings. I don't need to.
Right.
Our ratings are fantastic. We're on every platform you can imagine. Our iHeartRadio numbers are through the roof. And this is a show that is in its infantile state. And I think the reason that that's going on is because of exactly what I was pointing out, is that people are tired of being lied to.
Yeah.
They know they're being lied to. It's right out there in the wide open. People aren't even ashamed of this anymore. Let's go back and take a look at what happened yesterday in Kenosha. This is an independent journalist recorded this right here. And let's just take a look at this here.
Okay.
All right, that is the scene that happened in Kenosha yesterday. On Sunday, an officer involved shooting involving Mr. Blake. Mr. Blake, we have started to do some digging on him. I don't think that there's been anybody in the media that has really done any digging on him, and in the mainstream media, that is. But I've seen a lot of people independently in social media talking about this guy. You and I have taken a little bit of a look at it, and I just want to kind of show you this one more time, and we're just going to see. So let me just kind of explain what's going on here. So here's Blake. Okay, you can see there's several officers there. Okay, there he is. He's got something in his hand. He's walking away. They've already got their guns out. There he goes, reaching into the vehicle, and then there's 7 shots. Okay, that happened there, and what we were told by the media, and what we were told by the governor, and what we were told by the New York Times, and what we were told by Aaron Rodgers and LaFleur over there with the Green Bay Packers, and who else did you say? LeBron was weighing in on this now?
Yes, LeBron James, some dude that plays for the Milwaukee Bucks, is just outraged that this innocent guy was shot by the police.
An innocent guy, an unarmed, innocent black man who all he wanted to do was just de-escalate everything by getting away from these heathen, terroristic, racist, bigoted police officers who were just bullied in high school, and now they have this authority, and they're going to take all of that pent up racism that they've had their whole life, because that's how they were raised, because the only way that you would ever dare to go graduate high school, get accepted into college, put everything on the line to go get a law enforcement degree, go to skills training, go to an academy, go through the most excruciating backgrounding that you can think of, and personality tests and lie detector polygraphs, and then the field training process, which is you're scrutinized over and over again by field training officers, several different phases of that, and then go out on the street and run directly into gunfire to protect total strangers that you've never met, regardless of the color of their skin or who they intend to vote for on November 3rd. The only way that you could qualify to do all of that is if you are a closet racist.
Apparently.
Ask your dad, your black dad, by the way, who nobly served the St. Paul Police Department for how many years, and who debunks the theory of systemic racism in law enforcement every time he opens his mouth.
Yeah, we had quite the interesting conversation yesterday, and wow.
Speaking of interesting conversations, I just want to point out what happened here. One more thing, and if this doesn't show you the bias of the media, I don't know what else would. The New York Times, okay, we all know that Kenosha's on fire. It's burning. It's not peaceful. There's bricks being thrown at officers' heads while they celebrate and laugh. He just got bricked, F the police, all this other stuff. By the way, my show can be banned from YouTube, and we can be censored on Twitter and hated by mainstream media everywhere. But things like this will not get taken off as things that are graphic or insensitive. It's okay now to throw bricks at the heads of police officers and then laugh and cheer about it. The New York Times, this was an article that was just posted at 10:24 a.m. Eastern Time, so that would have been this morning here. Kenosha, Wisconsin. Peaceful marches in protest of a police shooting gave way to fires. Really?
Peaceful.
So these people were just peacefully sitting around, and all of a sudden, boom, out of nowhere, there were the fires. There they were. I mean, the peaceful protesters couldn't have lit those fires. Peaceful protests.
The flames just jumped out of their ass and started a car dealership
just out of
on fire?
nowhere, yeah. And the dump trucks. Yeah, the peaceful marches gave way to fires. Destruction and looting in Kenosha as a strip of businesses in a central residential neighborhood were consumed in flames early on Tuesday. They just gave way to the fires. The fires were coming with all kinds of firepower and weaponry, and the peaceful protesters said, no, we're just going to give way to you because we don't know where you're coming from or who lit you, but we're peaceful here.
And so what would happen if these business owners and these homeowners that are outraged because everything they've ever worked for in their life is burning to the ground? What would happen if these folks stepped out onto the street and started airing the place out and just started dropping people that are destroying their property?
They'd be
arrested. Would they go to prison?
Absolutely. They'd be arrested. They would be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. They would be labeled a racist. They would be labeled murderers. And they would go to prison, where they probably would not do very well. This is what we're seeing, right. Okay? And if the media bias doesn't scare you and wake you up enough, if it's not painfully obvious to you that you're being lied to by Democrats, and not even just Democrats, I'm talking about the hijackers, because we've discussed and we've said it before, and we're not going to get into this today, but we know that Democrats are good people. I'm talking about the hijackers, the extremists, the radical progressives, the communists, the fascists that are out here burning things down in the name of racism, which is a false narrative. If it's not painfully obvious that they're taking over the media and that the media is complicit in this, they're now also politicizing the highest levels of law enforcement. They've impacted the offices of chiefs around the country who are now tolerating this, and not only tolerating it, but actually encouraging it as they're feeling political pressure from mayors and city councils inside of their cities. County commissioners, like the people we saw out in Northern California with that guy the other day who was standing up for himself and his rights as a business owner. He will be heckled and deemed a racist, bigot, insensitive prick who doesn't care about anybody but himself because he refuses to wear a mask. If that isn't enough, we're now politicizing law enforcement to the point where you can be arrested for defending yourself against these thugs. And to talk more about that, we have Joe the cop on the phone. Joe is a 23-year veteran of law enforcement. Joe is still currently working as a law enforcement officer in the United States of America. We're not going to tell you where because we're going to protect his anonymity, which is why you only see a silhouette of a hero on the screen as we talk to him. Joe, welcome to this special session of Joe the cop on a Tuesday afternoon. And which is a little bit out of sorts because we normally love to be blessed by your presence on a Friday, but thanks for being here and making yourself available.
Yeah. Well, you do have a penchant for exaggeration when you say blessed by my presence.
Well, it's all for ratings and shock factor, okay?
We love having you, Joe.
That'll do it.
We were just watching this video, and we're going to show it again here real quick. For those of you who haven't seen this, I mean, you must be living under a rock, but this is what was going on in Kenosha, Wisconsin on Sunday. And here we have the scene, which no doubt you have seen, Joe. We'll talk about it here in a second. But here he is trying to, reach into the car. And then there is the 7 shots that ring out from an officer that shot him 7 times, presumably what appears to be in the back. Everybody, of course, the governor in Wisconsin, leadership in these elected officials, people that just want to protest and burn and see a way to loot on this, and then of course all of the media framing this as a racially charged murder already. What do you see here, and what are we missing? What is the media missing here, Joe?
Well, I don't think the media is missing anything. I think you could give them all the information, and more information has come out in just 24 hours that this Jacob Blake allegedly was armed with a knife. A witness reportedly stated that the officers ordered him to drop the knife. Allegedly, Jacob Blake stated that he was going to the car to get the gun. And we know that there was an active felony warrant for his arrest. Now,
Okay.
if we gave all this to the media,
Yeah.
it wouldn't change anything in the way they present the narrative, Stu.
Right. And just backing up for a minute here, we did do a little bit of digging on Jacob Blake. Blake has a very extensive criminal history involving firearms and crimes of violence, including assaulting police officers and plenty of domestic assaults. There was an active felony warrant for his arrest for criminal sexual conduct in the 3rd degree. And then there was also a domestic abuse charge and something else, I believe. Backing up to what you said he told the officers he was going to get the gun. Go into detail a little bit on that because I haven't heard any of this yet.
Well, that is from third-hand information, okay? But we have enough here right now based on just an independent witness statement, okay, about the knife. They told him to drop the knife. So he was either holding a knife or they perceived that he was holding a knife. In any event, when the officers draw their guns on you, you are not free to leave at that point. Now, he goes back into the vehicle if he does have a knife, and if he did say that he was going to get a gun, and he goes back into a vehicle where supposedly 3 of his children were. Listen, this is a perfect textbook Graham versus Conner or even Tennessee versus Garner case. It's going to be a justified shooting if all that is true. And right now, we have no reason to believe it's not true. There's absolutely no reason. In what realms do police officers, knowing that they're being recorded, draw guns on people and just shoot them in broad daylight for no reason? It doesn't happen. But it doesn't matter what I present or what you or what anybody presents, okay, to Sean King, to Benjamin Crump, to Lee Merritt, okay, to Al Sharpton, okay, to any of those race-baiting pimps. It doesn't matter what is presented to them. They will continue with the lie, and the liberals will eat it up.
Well, Joe, let's also talk about the fact that, I mean, what's done is done, but it's my opinion that if Mr. Blake would have been following the orders of the police, he wouldn't have been walking around the side of that car. He wouldn't have been reaching into that car to get shot. If you show me your hands and follow the directions that I give you as a law enforcement officer, if I were a law enforcement officer, you're going to, well, clearly he was going to jail. He had a warrant out for his arrest, but everybody else goes about their day. Nobody gets shot. No businesses burn. There's no outrage in Kenosha, Wisconsin.
Right.
Well, isn't that the way it always works? That if you comply, it works out. Listen, this guy is supposedly paralyzed from the waist down right now, Rich. Wouldn't compliance have been better?
Mm-hmm.
I think so.
You know, and in 100%, you're a currently working law enforcement officer in America. In 100% of the, well, let me just ask you, in what percent of encounters with people who are suspected of committing a crime or who you know who to have committed a crime, if they're going to jail, in what percentage of those encounters do things happen smoothly when they comply with your orders or your direction?
If 10 people comply, it's 100%. Okay, if one doesn't, then we have we have 1% of the time where it doesn't, and it can turn violent and it can turn ugly. But again, that's our function as the police.
Right.
Is to meet violence with superior violence. This, by all indications, is what was done here.
The other thing, too, is it's alleged that there were 3 kids in the car. that Blake's 3 sons were in the car, younger sons were in the car, and of course they're traumatized for life. And I'm not discounting that. The reports of the media say that, these kids will be traumatized for the rest of their life. I don't need the media to tell me that. I mean, anytime that somebody sees their father get shot by the police is going to be traumatizing. How they process that and how they justify that as they get older is going to depend on how strong they are as people and whether or not they want to see the truth about what was really going on. Their dad was wanted for criminal sexual conduct. He didn't follow the direction of the police. He didn't comply. And as a result of his decisions, he was shot by the police. But isn't it true as a cop, I'm going to ask you, that those 3 kids, it's very likely that the officers had knowledge that those kids were in that car. Isn't it their duty to protect the safety of those kids as well when he makes a move for that car? Let's just take the gun thing out of it. Let's take the knife thing out of it. Let's just say that this guy really isn't holding a weapon. The car becomes a weapon. The likelihood of him fleeing is pretty high. I mean, he's going to the car for a reason. If it's not to grab a weapon or a gun, it's to leave the scene. Chances are he's going to run somebody over on the way and then flee at high speeds. These kids are in the car. I mean, explain that to me. What else is going on around this scene that these officers have a duty to protect not only those kids, but the other people that are standing around here?
Well, I'm just gonna go back to if he was holding a knife. That just takes everything else out of the equation. Something happened here, and it appeared that there was some struggle beforehand. Okay, before they even shot him, it appeared there was some sort of physical struggle. I'll come back to what I've always said about this since yesterday. If they thought that they could have stopped him without the firearms, they absolutely would have. Right. They would have just gone hands-on and handcuffed him. They were pointing their guns at him for a reason, and supposedly there was a taser deployment, okay? There was a taser deployment prior to this that did not overcome Blake's resistance. So there's that. If he gets into the vehicle and escapes and he's not free to escape because there's a felony warrant for his arrest, yes, the children are in danger at that point. Now, will these kids grow up okay? Well, I doubt it. I mean, they're going to be constantly told how their dad was a victim when he was not. Their dad was a criminal.
Correct.
And listen, just under like normal circumstances, you're not going to be able to convince somebody that your dad deserved to be shot. It's not even about deserve to be shot. It's about he acted in a way and the police reacted. So much of what police do, Stu, is based on the actions of others. We react to the actions of others. And this is what you had here. That governor knows. I believe that governor knows that idiot governor knows deep down that this is a good shooting. He doesn't care. All right. He has to reach out to his thug voting base. He wants to get reelected. That's all this is about.
That's right.
It's the same with anything else. Sean King knows it's a good shooting. Sean King will lie. He has lied about everything his entire life.
For the listeners and the viewers who don't know who Sean King is, explain that and what you're talking about, Joe.
Well, he is a journalist that basically everything he does is takes up the side against the police every single time. But I'll tell you one thing you never see with Sean King. You never see Sean King on a show debating anything. You want to know why? Because he'd get destroyed. I would love to be on a show with Sean King for 5 minutes. I bet he'd never show his face again.
So I want to touch on something quick. Joe, is it your opinion that after just hearing a little snippet about Mr. Blake's past and his criminal history, do you think it's safe to say that the cops that were interacting with him or other cops in the community already know who he is and know his history and know that he fights with the police and know that he has these sexual crimes and all these things? It's not like they went in blind. Came into contact with a black dude that was uncooperative. I'm pretty sure that they were 4 or 5 officers deep because they already know his past. They know his history. They know who he is.
I'm not entirely sure if they knew his history. I think we there might be some safe assumption there somewhere, but we can't 100% say that at this time. We don't even know if they knew about the thing with the warrant at that time. I would assume that there was something going on there that gave the officer the impression this wasn't his first rodeo, even if they had no prior knowledge of him coming up to this incident. All right. Now, given his criminal history, we can see why he made another bad decision, because this is obviously a young man who has been making bad decisions for his whole life. You do not have an extensive criminal history at that age. How old is this guy? I think he's in his 20s. You don't have an extensive history at that age if you're making the right decisions. So once again, everything that happened here happened based on the actions of Jacob Blake. Right?
So
the officers reacted to that.
Yeah, and so you're alluding to the individual responsibilities or personal responsibilities and the consequences that individuals can have if they make the wrong choices. So you're not speaking the language of people who oppose the facts here. I mean, you're not speaking the language of elected officials. You're not speaking the language of a lot of the police chiefs out here now that are getting down on their hands and knees, quite literally, in streets alongside of these rioters and these criminal thugs who are burning things down with the threat of no arrest or with no threat of any arrest because they're entitled.
I would have to, yeah. I would basically have to speak in the language of a pig snorting in the mud for them to have any concept, okay, of the reality of what I was saying.
Yeah, they are.
Now,
we
don't know 100% of everything right now, but by all indications, this is looking like a good shooting. Okay, we can't say 100%, but it's looking that way.
You said that there was a taser deployment. We don't see the taser deployment here in the video. Can you kind of go through that? So the cops show up. They're here. What do you know about this chronologically from the 911 call until up to where we are? Because literally all we're getting here is we're getting the narrative from the New York Times. You know, I'm not saying that you were there in Kenosha. I'm not saying that you have firsthand knowledge, but you're in the police community. What are the grumblings and the goings on and the mumblings in the hallway about some of the things that we might not know what happened here after the police were called to come here and deal with this out of control sex predator?
So far right now, we all have the same information. But this is why I always like to wait until we get like the full case file on it before I, write like my normal 20 paragraph dissertation. I mean, there's a reason I've always been right about these cases and the outcome of the cases, because I like to wait for everything. But right now, I think we all pretty much have the same thing. I mean, he was a felony warrant suspect. He wasn't free to leave. When the police are pointing guns at you, you're not free to leave. So they obviously saw something with him prior to that, okay? To say he was there trying to de-escalate a fight with family members, I don't believe that bullshit for 1 minute, okay? I don't believe that any more than I believe this bullshit that Alton Sterling was selling CDs and the police shot him. We obviously know why Alton Sterling was shot. Okay, I don't believe that anymore, and I believe this bullshit that Keith Scott was holding a book when he was shot by the police. The video shows he was pointing a gun at the police when he was shot. So obviously the police showed up there for a reason. They were dispatched there. If it was domestic, well, you already go in knowing that's a dangerous situation. Do we not?
Absolutely.
Of course we did.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Okay. So the taser deployment, if he was carrying a knife and walking away from that, probably would explain why there was a taser deployment, or the taser deployment could have been he's walking away and he's a felony warrant suspect.
You had something. You had something that was on your Facebook page of the what is it called? The Albuquerque Police Department. Tell us a little bit about that. It was since deleted. Is that what we're hearing?
Correct. It was the chief, the Albuquerque Police Department chief, and that that agency is absolutely not a stranger to officer-involved shootings. They've had tons of shootings, okay, in the last 10 years. They've all been legally justified, even the ones where they tried to bring the two officers up on charges, okay, for murder, for shooting a homeless camper. They were not able to convict them. They've all been justified. That agency has been under, I think, a consent decree, a Department of Justice consent decree for several years now, okay? This is a chief who decided to stick his nose into it, okay? He decided to stick his nose into this matter and basically call the shooting tragic and then make reference to Jacob Blake's race, and that has nothing to do with it, and basically point the finger at these officers in Kenosha, who by all indications at this time acted lawfully. He was just trying to pander for no other reason than he's a coward. Listen, no chief should be taking an official position on any police shooting that does not occur in his jurisdiction. If you're not the chief in that jurisdiction, just shut up.
I have to get to this because we're limited time here, but the post that I'm talking about, and I just want to say that the Albuquerque Police Department, and I want to read it because for people who don't know, because it's since been deleted, and it was deleted because he's a coward. But he wrote, quote, "The senseless shooting of Jacob Blake once again shows why our community and communities across the nation are seeking justice and change. On behalf of the Albuquerque Police Department, APD, I offer my sympathy to Jacob Blake's family and his children who witnessed this disturbing act. I sincerely hope he makes a full recovery. Chief of Police Mike Geyer." Okay, so then he deleted that because he knows that it's BS and because he's a coward, and somebody had to have told him this is not an accurate reflection of the truth.
You read it. You had it in front of you. I didn't have it in front of me at this time. But yes, what he did was he took an official department stance on a shooting. Okay, condemning the officers, and it may very well turn out to be justified. Once again, this is why, if it doesn't concern you, okay, keep your mouth shut. Because now you just spoke for your officers. Your officers are involved in shootings all the time down there. Do you not realize what this could do to you someday in court, in a civil action? If you say this shooting is wrong and your officers have a similar shooting, that could put you on the hot seat as chief. It's called vicarious liability. Just shut your mouth.
That's right.
I mean, if this guy, Albuquerque, I can see the yellow stripe down this guy's back from here, Stu.
That's too much.
Once again,
that's too much. That's too much to ask. You can't ask these people to shut up anymore because they're social justice warriors and they're going to make names for themselves. It's no secret that when somebody takes over at the chief's chair, they become a politician. They serve at the pleasure of the city council. They serve at the pleasure of the mayor. There's no secret that they could have been the best street cop on the planet. Typically not really, but they could have been at least a cop's cop. They could have been somebody who supported the actions of the police. In 30 seconds, do you have experience in dealing with chiefs like that?
No, I generally like my chief. I never really had any issues with them myself. But normally what I see with these big city chiefs that get promoted up through the ranks, they always say the same thing. Oh, he's a cop's cop. He was a cop's cop. This guy was great. And as it turns out, Stu, and I'll close it out with this, as we found out in the case of Jimmy O'Neill, New York City Police Department Commissioner, he wasn't a cop's cop. Turned out he was a coward's coward.
Mm-hmm. Appreciate having you on. It's always nice to have the professional input from somebody who's on your side of that blue line. We thank you very much for your service, and we always pray for your continued safety. Joe the Cop, right here on PC Radio. And where did he go? Did he take off there? I don't see him here anymore.
I'll see you guys in a few days.
Okay, that sounds good, and we'll have Joe the Cop back on. We did have something happen here with this, and I don't know exactly what it is that's going on. Always having technical difficulties over here with intern boy pushing the wrong button. But the scene there in Kenosha is definitely horrific. We don't wish that on anybody, and we just we understand that everybody's actions come with consequences, and we just the words of encouragement to comply with the police. And if you feel like they've done something that is unjust or illegal, you will have your day in court, at which time you can sue the hell out of everybody involved. Final words, Rich.
There it is. Wait for the truth. Wait for the truth before we start condemning people, good, bad, or indifferent.
Yep.
It's too much.
It's too much. All right. For that guy over there and for myself, Stu Peters, Patriotically Correct Radio. It always seems like it goes so fast, but we will be back tomorrow. And don't worry. Don't fear. These glowing smiles will be back on the OpsLens app, on iHeartRadio, Mojo 50 Radio. Until then, here's what's up to it. Here's what's down to it. Here's to any way you can get to it. Here's to those that don't do it. May they be dragged to it, tied to it, or forced to it. And here's to us who do it, because we're the ones that's used to it. Remember, one day they're going to come for the car, and when they do, save the radio! Yeah!
Broadcasting live on the OpsLens app, iHeartRadio, Mojo 50 Radio, and online worldwide at thepcradioshow.com.